The buzzards circled first. 3 of them, black wings gliding low, lazy in the heat. Beneath them, Clara McGraw dragged her broken body through dust that scorched like fire and clung like guilt. Blood dried in flakes across her face. Her bonnet was long gone. So was the wagon, the preacher, and the others who'd called themselves righteous folk. They left her bleeding beside the smoldering wreckage, eyes closed, breath shallow, belly hollow. They didn't bury her, didn't even check for a pulse. Just took the horses, the supplies, and their silver-tongued preacher with his Bible soaked in sin. Now she crawled, one hand forward then the next. Her skirts torn, caked with dirt, dragging like chains. Her mouth open for breath, but the air only fed her thirst. Somewhere in the distance, wind rolled like thunder across the mesas. Her eyes flicked up once. Horizon shimmered with heat, sky pulsing like a furnace. A groan slipped from her lips. Elias. His name again. Her husband. The preacher with soft hands and soft words, buried beneath the smoking remains of their wagon. The last thing she saw before blackness claimed her was the Reverend Cole dragging Elias by the collar, shouting orders, blaming the raid on savage vengeance. Then Clara's own scream, sharp and fast, as iron cracked against her skull. The pain returned now in waves, humming behind her eyes. She reached for a thorn bush, fingers too numb to feel the sting, and pulled herself another inch forward. Her lungs rattled. Her heart thudded like hooves on dry dirt. The buzzards drew closer. Then, stillness. A shift in the air. Clara froze. Sand trickled near her ear, and something moved, not wind. A whisper of breath. A shadow. Her bleary eyes blinked once, twice against the glare. And then she saw him. A figure on horseback, silhouetted against the blaze of the sun. He did not speak, did not move at first, just stared down at her from atop a tall paint horse, the feathers braided into its mane catching firelight like embers. She wanted to scream, but could only wheeze. He dismounted. The crunch of his boots in the sand sounded like gunfire in the silence. He crouched beside her, young, with eyes darker than midnight, high cheekbones, black hair tied back, red ochre dust across his chest and shoulders. A long scar curved down from his left temple like a river carved by time. She tried to speak. Nothing came. He looked at her for a long moment, then pressed 2 fingers to her neck. Clara tried to swat him away. Her arm barely lifted an inch. The man turned, gave a sharp whistle. The horse stepped forward, patient and calm. Then the man lifted Clara, weightless as bone, and slung her across the saddle. She gasped at the pain, her vision going white, but no sound left her throat. The last thing she saw before blackness swallowed her again was the buzzards, still circling, watching, waiting. Fire cracked in the darkness. A soft crackle, not a destruction, of warmth. Clara opened her eyes to a ceiling of red rock. Shadows flickered on stone walls shaped by wind and time. Smoke curled through narrow cracks above, drawing the stars into a dance. She tried to sit up. A hand pressed her shoulder gently back down. The man, same face, same silence. He handed her a cup, water, clear and cold. She drank until her hand shook. It spilled down her throat, over her chin, but she didn't stop. Not until he pulled the cup back. Then the tears came, not from pain, not from grief, from shame. He had seen her broken. She turned her face to the wall, biting her lip until it bled. The man said nothing, just placed a warm blanket over her and sat across the fire, watching, waiting. Night passed without words. Dawn lit the canyon in gold. Clara sat upright now, her head wrapped, arms wrapped, soul still unwound. The man was there, kneeling by the coals, grinding something in a stone bowl. Herbs, maybe, or roots. She croaked, "Why?" He looked up. "Why'd you save me?" Silence again. Then, softly, "You were not dead." His voice was low, shaped by wind and ash. She stared at him, uncertain. "I'm Clara," she said after a pause. He nodded. "Toya, Toya." She tried the name, felt it stick in her dry throat. He motioned to the bowl, then to her side. She hesitated, then allowed him to apply the paste to her ribs, arms, face. It burned at first, then cooled like river water over coals. I should have died out there, she whispered. He didn't answer, just wrapped her wounds again with cloth and care. Later, when the sun rose high, he stood and nodded toward the canyon mouth. She hobbled after him. Beyond the narrow pass, the world opened. Red cliffs, twisting shadows, brushland cut by dry riverbeds. A hawk circled above. Clara squinted. This your home? No, he said. No home. Then why here? He looked down the cliffs, voice low. Safe. She said nothing for a long time. Then, without looking at him, asked, Are you going to take me back? To Bitter Crossing? Toya turned to her. His eyes said what his mouth did not. They left you. That night, when the wind rose and stars came out like fireflies caught in black silk, Clara sat alone beside the flames. Her hands were stronger now, her eyes sharper, but her heart still limped like a wounded dog behind her ribs. Toya approached, handed her a bowl of stew. She took it, ate in silence. Then she asked quietly, You ever lose someone? He sat across from her. Nodded once. Wife, he said. Long time. What happened? Bluecoats came. Burned our village. Said it was a mistake. Too late. Clara stared into the fire. Two people, hollowed by different flames, staring at the same smoke. The knife bit her palm before she flinched. Blood welled dark and slow across the stone. Again, the old woman said. Clara tightened her grip on the flint blade. Her hands were blistered, raw, and trembling from the day's work, gutting fish, scraping hides, hauling wood. But she nodded, pressed the blade again. A second slice. Another offering. The old woman nodded. Now into the fire. Clara stepped barefoot across the hot-packed earth and held her bleeding hands over the flames. Smoke curled up. The pain made her shoulders twitch, but she didn't pull away. Behind her, drums thudded like a distant storm. Children danced, their faces painted in streaks of ochre and white. The canyon walls flickered orange as dusk folded around them. Toya stood beneath the tallest rock, arms crossed, face unreadable. A man of few words and fewer explanations. Tonight he watched. Clara had been among them for weeks now, maybe months. The days bled together like sweat on stone. She no longer counted. Her old world was gone. Her name was still Clara, but only in the corners of memory. Here, she was something else, something reborn. Morning came sharp and cold. She woke to coyote cries and the rattle of bones outside the cave. Clara stretched, winced, and stepped into the light. Her body ached, but it moved the way it should now, strong, practiced. She could shoot, ride, hunt, dress wounds. Not perfectly, but better than yesterday. A boy ran past her, giggling, holding a spear twice his size. His sister followed, barefoot and fearless. Clara watched them go, then turned to the trail. Toya was already climbing. She followed. Up the red rock face they went, boots scraping, hands gripping sun-warmed stone. At the summit, the desert stretched endless and cruel. But in the canyon, the wind whispered peace. Toya knelt beside a flat stone and placed a rifle atop it. He motioned for Clara to sit. She did. He handed her a single bullet. She turned it over in her fingers. Heavy, cool, full of quiet purpose. Who taught you? She asked. My father, he said. He hunted men and buffalo the same. Clara nodded, loaded the rifle, took aim at a painted mark on a distant rock. Her hands were steady. She exhaled, squeezed. Crack! The shot echoed through the cliffs. The mark chipped, clean and sharp. Toya raised an eyebrow. Better. I want more than better, she said. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. That night, fire danced again. But this time, she sat beside it not as guest but kin. Toya's sister braided a red thread into Clara's hair. A child placed feathers in her lap. The elder woman from the blood ceremony pressed ash to her cheeks and whispered a prayer. Not all welcomed her. Some still stared too long. Others looked away, but none stopped it. When Toya approached, the firelight caught in his eyes. He said nothing, just held out his hand. Clara took it. They walked beyond the circle together, into the canyon's mouth where stars burned bright enough to make a person forget their name. He stopped, faced her. Still wish to go back? He asked. She shook her head. They think I'm dead. You are, he said, but not buried. Silence stretched between them like taut rope. Then he reached into his coat, pulled out a small leather string. A carved bone charm hung from it, sun-bleached, worn smooth. He tied it around her wrist. Clara's voice cracked. What does it mean to belong? Days passed, then weeks. Clara rose before the sun now. She hunted. She traded. She helped birth a calf with her bare hands. Her English tongue softened. Her eyes hardened. One morning, she found herself alone in the canyon's heart, breathing the cool air, listening to nothing but wind and stone. A shadow passed overhead. She looked up. A hawk circled high. Her thoughts drifted back to Bitter Crossing, to the faces she used to trust, to the Reverend Isaac Cole, who wore God like a mask, who'd looked at her bleeding body and said, "She's gone. Leave her." He would have taken her wedding ring if her fingers weren't so swollen with blood. She clenched her fists now. Toya stood behind her. "You're thinking of them," he said. She didn't answer. "They took from you. They took everything." He paused. "You can take it back." Clara turned. "Ow!" His voice was soft, but unflinching. "Fire." The ceremony was small. The sky purpled with dusk. Toya wore a red band across his brow. Clara wore a white tunic stitched by hand, feathers at the hem. They stood before the fire. No preacher, no lawman, just the earth and the sky and the people who had healed her. The elder woman spoke. Two spirits walk one trail now. Clara took Toya's hand. He didn't smile, but he didn't have to. That night, as they lay beneath the stars on the high ridge, wind curling through the brush, Clara whispered, "Do you believe in fate?" Toya watched the constellations shift. "I believe in fire, in wind, in blood. I believe in vengeance," she said. He turned to her. "Then it's time." The saloon doors flung open like gunshots. Dust trailed behind the two riders, one wrapped in black, the other in bone-white buckskin, her face shaded beneath a wide-brimmed hat. They didn't speak. They didn't blink. They moved like ghosts through the midday heat. Inside, Bitter Crossing paused mid-breath. Card stopped mid-shuffle. Whiskey glasses froze halfway to lips. A piano player let his hands fall from the keys. Toya stepped to the side. Clara walked forward. The floor creaked beneath her boots. Wooden planks remembered her weight. She passed the table near the front. Three settlers looked up and stared. One dropped his glass. "Sweet Lord," he whispered. "That's her." She didn't stop. Her coat shifted with each step, and a glint of steel showed at her hip. The scar above her brow caught the light. She walked like a woman who had died once and come back sharper. At the far end of the room stood Reverend Isaac Cole, white suit pressed, silver cross gleaming like a lie in the lantern light. He held a glass of bourbon in one hand, a Bible in the other. He looked at Clara, blinked, said nothing. "You remember me?" she asked. His lip curled. "I buried you." "No," she said, stepping closer. "You walked away." Outside, the town gathered. Children peeked around posts. Old men leaned on rifles. Women watched from balconies with eyes like storm clouds. Everyone in Bitter Crossing had heard some version of the tale. A preacher's widow, the raid, the bodies, the blood. But none had ever seen her like this. Not risen, not whole, not dangerous. Inside the saloon, silence rang louder than bullets. Reverend Cole raised his voice. "I see the devil walks beside you," he said, eyes flicking to Toya. The warrior stood still as stone. Clara didn't look away. "The devil didn't leave me to die. You married a savage," Cole spat. "You live among heathens soaked in sin." She stepped forward. "And you baptized murder with holy water." Cole slammed his glass down. Men rose from the corners of the room. 5 of them, armed, grim, sun-scarred. Gunslingers. Hired hands. Clara's hand twitched near her revolver. Cole smirked. "You think we didn't hear you were coming? You think I let a ghost take my church?" "I didn't come for your church," Clara said. She pulled the badge from her coat. A marshal's tin star, cracked and dulled. Toya tossed it onto the table. It landed beside Cole's glass with a dull clink. "Marshal Whitaker gave us his blessing," Clara said. "He's been watching you. Land fraud, robbery, false ministry, murder." One of the hired guns shifted. "That true, preacher?" Cole's smile cracked. "You take her word over mine?" "She ain't dead," the man muttered. Clara nodded. Not yet. Then it happened. Cole's hand dove for his holster. But Clara was faster. Her shot split the room like thunder. The preacher's shoulders snapped back, blood blooming across white linen. He stumbled, dropped the Bible, screamed. The hired men reached for iron, but Toya had already moved, quiet, swift, surgical. The first man went down with a knife to the neck. The second caught a rifle, but to the temple. The third turned to run. Clara shot him in the back of the leg. Two left froze. We ain't dying for him, one muttered, backing toward the door. Get out, Clara said. They fled. Cole lay on the floor, clutching his shoulder, eyes wide with something he'd never tasted, fear. You led them into the desert, Clara said, voice low. You left my husband to burn. You told them I was dead. You were, he gasped. No, she whispered, kneeling beside him. I was reborn. The door creaked open behind her. Marshal Whitaker stepped in, coat trailing, spurs clicking like judgment. Well now, he said, looking around. Didn't expect to miss the show. He stepped over the bleeding preacher. Isaac Cole, he drawled. I reckon you'll hang for this. Clara stood. Not if he bleeds out first. The marshal glanced at her. You pulled your gun second? She nodded. He tipped his hat. Didn't see a thing. By sundown, Bitter Crossing whispered. They whispered of the preacher who bled in the street. They whispered of the woman in white who rode with the wind. They whispered of the warrior beside her who vanished like smoke. Clara stood at the edge of town, dust kicking at her heels. Toya mounted his horse. She looked back once, at the crooked steeple and the cross that had watched her die, then turned away. Behind her, Bitter Crossing would bury a preacher. Ahead, the canyon waited. The gallows creaked in the wind. Marshal Whitaker stood beneath it, cigarette pinched between fingers, watching the sun bleed across the town square. The crowd had gathered early, shopkeepers, ranch hands, mothers with babes on hips. Bitter Crossing held its breath. At the center, Reverend Isaac Cole knelt, arms bound, bruised and bloodied, lips split from questioning. A white bandage wrapped his shoulder, but it seeped red with each pulse. You're making a mistake, Cole rasped, eyes wild. She's not law. She's vengeance. The marshal didn't look at him. That's what makes it legal. The saloon doors opened. Clara stepped out. Rifle slung low, coat flared behind her like wings of ash. Toya walked beside her, silent, deadly, watching every rooftop and alley as they passed. But no one moved. No one dared. Clara walked up the gallows steps. The crowd parted. Even the wind held still. Town's yours, the marshal said without turning. I don't want it, Clara replied. Then what do you want? She looked at Cole. He stared back like a cornered wolf. I want the lie to end. The marshal stepped down. Clara stood alone beside the man who'd written her death in his gospel. You held a sermon the day after you left me, she said, loud enough for the town to hear. Told them the desert had judged me. That God's wrath had come. You used his name to cover your cowardice. Cole spat blood. I saved them. You save yourself. You stole land, sold off what didn't belong to you, hung the word blessed above every grave you dug. You baptized your crimes with scripture. She pulled a folded paper from her coat. Legal documents, signed by the marshal, stamped with a federal seal. Every deed you forged, every dollar you laundered, every body you left behind. It's all here. She tossed it in the dirt beside him. Anything to say? Cole looked at the people he once ruled. Most looked away. Some stared straight through him. His voice cracked. She's married to a savage. Clara's hand twitched near her revolver. Toya stepped forward, but she held up a palm. He's not your prey, she said. She turned to the marshal. This town needs a reckoning, but not by blood. The marshal nodded. Then make it official. Clara knelt beside Cole, unstrapped a revolver, and placed it in his bound hands. A gasp moved through the crowd. Stand, she said. Cole looked confused. His fingers shook. He stood, trembling. She stepped back. Try it. He stared at the gun. The weight of it. The crowd silent. Then he drew. Too slow. Clara's hand moved once. One shot. The revolver flew from Cole's hand, clattered across the platform. He howled and fell to his knees. She hadn't killed him, hadn't even drawn blood, but she shattered the last lie he ever held, that he was powerful. that he could still command fear. Marshal Whitaker stepped forward. That your judgment? She nodded. Then bitter crossing accepts it. He turned to the crowd. You all know what he is. You let it happen. Now you bury him. Outside the fence. No sermon. No name. No one argued. Later, as dusk curled over the ridge and stars lit the horizon, Clara and Toya mounted their horses. The town faded behind them. Just another scar on the desert's hide. She didn't look back. They rode until the land broke open into silence. Maces rising like giants, sky stretched to infinity. Clara pulled her horse to a stop. Toya did the same. What now? He asked. She reached into her coat, pulled out her old wedding ring. The one from Elias. Bent, burned, still clinging to the chain around her neck. She slid it off, kissed it once, then dropped it into the dust. Wind carried it away. To the fire, she said. To the fire, he echoed. And together they rode on.